Hey everybody, welcome back to the second half live session of the Day Trade Room. It's currently 3:30, so we'll take you into the last half an hour of the market session, and we'll also be covering a few earnings reports as we do have some after the bell. But what has transpired, we exited our two other day trades for a win. Our AI was a full position over 71 cents on a full position, so excellent job. And then XLM was a little more of a difficult one. But we did squeeze out the 50-cent target that we gave. This was the position where it started coming in. We covered it for 50 cents at our average here. And you can see it's actually rallied back all day long. So this is the importance of not trying to be greedy. Stick to your targets. Yes, you can make money if you hold on to trades sometimes a little bit longer, but you can also lose money. So it's been 4 for 4 in the live day trade room today. And right now we'll just keep an eye on the S&P 500. But you can see we've pulled off the highs substantially. All day long you were keeping this uptrend above this short-term moving average. And you've basically broken it now, confirmed it on the smaller time frames. Looking to retrace. The big level is, will you see rejection at that level? Or will it power through and continue up? Based off of the volume trends in the S&P, they're extremely light, anemic volume trends. Right now in the S&P 500 we're trading at 43.4 million. So this is shaping up to probably be the lightest volume session of the year so far. Obviously, it's ahead of Fed meeting. So what that means is it doesn't take much money to move the market up. And light volume does favor buoyancy. So in terms of earnings, after the bell, we're watching AMD, AMGN, CP, Snap, and then we also have Chubb, Edward Life Sciences, EW is the ticker, Stryker Corporation, SYK, Mondelez, MDLZ. So we have 8 windows up. We'll be watching 8 different stocks. And then we also have one of our, we're actually not playing in any of these right now, but obviously it's pretty important to see how the market moves and what guidance there's given. One of our trades is reporting earnings today though. It is Southern Copper after the bell, so that's another one we'll be watching. We are short Southern Copper. Now, my expectations on Southern Copper is probably, let's just pull up the chart. Southern Copper has had a positive day. So Southern Copper is basically trading at this double top resistance. Let me just see something here. SCCO. Yeah, my chart is slightly different on here. Let me just see if I can adjust this. But yeah, we are short around 75, 77, so we're slightly in the money, but it's basically right at this level. Now this chart is still extremely extended. Obviously it's had the backdrop of copper being abnormally strong. Kind of that secondary reflationary pulse coming back into the markets. But in terms of SCCO, we'll be watching to add to our short at this double top zone here, around 79. And then you have a third level all the way up here at this double top. So we have our short levels. If for some reason the stock was to drop, you'll have a little bit of support over here, which I'll leave in white, as well as these pivots over here. Now in terms of what type of money we would be looking at if it had a big move down, first major support, 14% gain, second major support, 18% gain. I would cover my shorts. Obviously, if it pops up, we have about a 4.8% move to the upside before we add. And then the secondary add level is 9.7. So the stock could have a implied volatility range. You can see that it had pretty good earnings on this last report. And that's what sent it popping, soaring and roaring. But it's very inconsistent. the stock. I mean, here we had a bout of 4 negative earnings. So it's going to be interesting to see. And to follow in companies like this, you know, it's so important to follow the copper miners because copper is involved in everything that we know: housing, vehicles, our economy, all sorts of manufacturing, electronics. So they may have inflationary insights based off of the demands, which could give us additional insights to whether or not we could likely see an uptick in the CPI. The copper price, which we've discussed with our members, if we pull up the copper chart, copper has had a very, very reflationary move since it was bottoming on the lows there. And basically this whole move, starting from, well, we had the December CPI, so the next January CPI will really take into account basically all of December's price action here. So almost about a 9 to 10% move in the price of copper. Additional. And then on top of that, you've still had another doubling. So it's starting to creep up, the prices of commodities. You're seeing it in lumber. Lumber's trying to hit that 200 daily moving average, but it has broken out of its short-term downtrend. Now it seems to be putting in a potential basing formation, but we'll have to really monitor that. Let's flip back to the S&P, because it is just floating back up on the slight volume. In about 5 minutes, I'll go over some levels with you in terms of my expectations. The Dow has rallied substantially, up 2.91%. That's impressive. It's the transports. The S&P is still trying to creep up. Just give me a second here. So we're going to run through some potential earning plays as the market creeps up. AMD is one of them. So AMD has actually been trading inside of this wide range green bar. That's technically bullish. This does favor a move up. Now anything can change with earnings, so I'm not jumping on this potential bullish pattern yet. I'd rather wait for a reaction one way or another. But in terms of AMD, if we were to pop into you have some minor resistance coming up at 84. Pretty good resistance. And then also this pivot high up here. So basically that's pretty decent resistance in and amongst these two levels here. You can see that if you carry these trend lines back, not only did you have a consolidation bear flag breakdown, but you also had a major pivot bounce twice. So it's a big technical level. You did have a lot of volume traded back here in May on AMD. Obviously, there will be a lot of shorts waiting at the 200. You can see that the 200 likely coincides with these two pivot tops. And the importance of that is the markets have tested that area twice and failed. Likely the third time it does come up here to test it, it'll pierce through it, which is why we don't want to just short at the 200, which a lot more novice traders would. But we would let it pierce, and I would start accumulating a short basically at this 84 level or higher. Another play we're looking at is AMGN. AMGN is the ticker. Spiders are just trying to float up. Sorry, I was just looking at another screen. So AMGN's actually been beaten down, and if earnings wasn't today, I would have definitely picked some up here at the gap fill. But one of the reasons why I think that we could see some more weakness in AMGN, although it is oversold and I would consider it going along here, we just haven't seen a big technical bounce off this area. So you had the 200 daily moving average there yesterday, which you actually came straight into in an oversold condition, and you closed below. And today you also closed below the 200. Well, there's still a little bit left, 17 minutes. But you've had 2 days below the 200 daily moving average with minimal bounce in an oversold condition. So basically the price action is displaying some weakness. So we're probably going to have to wait a little bit lower. There's this first area that we're watching. Obviously you have that upsloping trend line. If AMGN fell right into this level, we would be buyers. Right into this 230, 210 level. That would be an awesome, awesome trade. Now, there is some pretty decent support coming in around this major pivot. This was your gap up, obviously on news. So there is decent support there. Let's just look at the larger time frame, the weekly, see if there's any other key moving averages coming in. So this yellow or this orange moving average here is the 100 weekly moving average. So that would actually be a really good level of support as well, considering that you haven't really had a technical bounce. So we'll just add a little trend line there just to put that into our mind that the orange line is the weekly 100. So yeah, if we actually drop down there, I would consider the 240.48 level as a play on AMGN. That would imply about another 4.75% drop. Let me see what else we have. Obviously, there's another powerhouse, Chubb, CB. Chubb is a powerhouse stock. I'd be going long on Chubb if it came right down into this gap fill. Pierce of the daily 200 at 197, if basically a pierce of 200. And let me just check my other charts here. Markets are seeing a little bit of a pop. Yeah, so Chubb at a pierce of 200, this gap fill, that would be a potential long trade on Chubb. Chubb's a powerhouse, which is kind of frightening because it's security, which means that it could mean a couple things. Either there's more fear creeping in to the markets, people are beefing up security, or there's more crime. And it likely is that there's more crime starting to uptick into the markets. So that's the level on Chubb. Now, if Chubb were to pop higher, I would consider shorting. Short level, the first short level, there's a couple short levels on Chubb. Would be that trend line at the high. And you have a really max move all the way over there. Spiders are pushing for new highs. Look at this friggin' float up on light volume, back to the highs. It would actually be interesting to see if the spiders fill that gap before market close, or perhaps maybe we fill it tomorrow morning and then sell off, or we just keep rallying up. Maybe Powell helps the markets go up. We shall see. The dollar's putting in some minor bullish consolidation potential at the lows. Still holding a technical breakout. The dollar has broken out on these smaller time frames like the hourly. So you had your breakout over here and you had your secondary push. As long as you're above this white trend line, the dollar still remains to potentially have more upside. In terms of other trades, I'm also watching Snap, of course. Snap reports. So this is going to be a sympathy play to our meta trade. Our meta trade, obviously we're short meta, so if Snap gives us any insights into ad revenues being down, you could see some stocks, potentially see some weakness based off of sympathy. But look how beaten down Snap is. And this is why we got to be careful about shorting these names. Even the smallest shred of news can help this stock pop. Now it has had an impressive move off the lows, but I would have to wait for it to have a substantial move higher if we were to consider to short. Because remember, Snap can have like 40-50% moves on earnings. So simply shorting at the 200-day, yeah, it could work out, but it also could go against you really quickly. Basically, you will have some resistance on Snap at this double top, which coincides with this 200, but I would wait for a better pierce. I'm not going to short that 200 daily moving average. In terms of a decent level, let's just see if we can see anything else. So you do have that upsloping trend line, which you've been held in check twice now over here. So here it was support, you had a bounce, and then you gapped over that level, came up and tagged it as resistance, fell, and you haven't been able to retrace there. So perhaps that 200 daily moving average is better than just having the 200, because you have a major trend line where it acted as support and resistance. But again, the way Snap moves, we're talking about a 13 or 15% move in Snap. It could do that in its sleep if it caught a bid. And the way this speculation trade has been going lately, with meme stocks running and crazy stocks like AMGN, Lucid, BBBY, Carvana. So basically, Snap's stock price moves have been roughly a 28.55% decrease, a 35.78% decrease. They've had a 3.25% decrease, and then a 21.3% increase after earnings reaction. So as we've been discussing, that volatility range is huge, and it likely is going to see a move one way or another. Maybe it doesn't, but likely it will. Would I go long Snap? Perhaps I would. Now there's still a major technical gap on Snap down here around the $7 mark. So I'd go long Snap 7 if it fell. Or maybe even the double bottom I'd consider. But I'd prefer it if it pierced that level. Charts always like to make lower lows or higher highs. And the S&P is pushing for that gap. So let's see what happens here. 9 minutes left in the session, and the S&P is pushing for that gap fill on all the time frames. So it would actually be beneficial if we fill that gap today to see what the reaction is off of that level. And then based off of the earnings, we'll see what type of action we get. We're also going to be looking at, we have Mondelez, Chubb we spoke about, Edward Life Sciences, EW is the ticker. I'll pull up here. Another chart that's been really beaten down is Edward Life Sciences, EW. Basically, let's see. So if EW were to pop straight up, you have a technical gap, which I would let pierce. I would love to see it hit this daily 200 moving average. That would be an interesting level to actually short at. And you can see that you have a major breakdown level that occurred over here, connecting a major pivot. You bounced, sliced through, retraced once, twice, 3 times, gap down. So, and it just so happens to coincide with the daily. So this is a stock where I would use the daily 200 as another factor to reinforce the trade. And if it popped up there, I would short it. Not really interested in going long because the markets are at resistance. Unless it had a move, let's see what type of drop this would be if it brought us down to double bottom. You know, 11% drop. Perhaps, maybe. Certainly not for a swing trade. I would do a day trade if I was, but not a swing. But I can definitely do a swing short if we popped into the 200 daily. And then we have one more on the radar, Mondelez, MDLZ. Mondelez is actually putting in bearish consolidation, as seen on this chart. Now, the thing about this chart is earnings can change it drastically. So we just have to be mindful of that. But you have basically the neckline of this little mini topping formation, which you broke on your impulse bar, confirmed. Now you could see a retrace. I would love to short Mondelez if we retrace into this 67 level, this gap fill. And then you obviously have additional resistance up at these pivots. Now, I'd go long on Mondelez if it, let's see, I would really have to see a bigger trend level hit. But look at this beautiful symmetrical channel that Mondelez has been trading in. So you've hit the upper range twice, you've hit the lower range twice. The next tag of the level is going to be crucial. I would love to see it. Either level can be played, but I think it's more likely that we hit the lower round boundary range than the upper range. Let's just look back at the SPY because it's very close. I think it's just filling the gap as we speak. So the S&P currently is just shy of that gap fill. Just getting a potential alert. Gap spiders are just cruising. Whoa, they're just blasting through this gap. Holy, what a gap. What a blast through. ONB is a potential short here. ONB. I'm taking an ONB short as a swing trade. Carvana. Thoughts on Carvana? Let's take a look at Carvana. Is this a swing? You long, you short? Carvana is not a healthy chart. Now, the one thing you have working for you if you're long is it's beaten down. I mean, look at this stock. But it certainly doesn't. Where I could see Carvana retracing to and testing to is this COVID low. You'd have massive resistance, but that's a long shot. That is a huge long shot. I'm not saying it will, but it could. But Carvana's had an impressive move off the lows. What level are you long Carvana on, John? I would not go long Carvana myself. I would certainly not go long Carvana. You're approaching some wide range red bar sell-offs that happened on the last earnings call. So that could be potentially some sell side pressure in the near term. And if you look at this intraday action, this heavy sell side pressure, the fact that you had a impressive rally, made a new high, but it wasn't really that convincing and it was reversed, shows you that there's sellers lurking. So just be very careful with Carvana. It's had an amazing move off the lows. You're talking about more than doubling, you know, from the lows here, 360. It's had almost a 300% move. It's a gamble in my opinion, considering they're also declaring bankruptcy. But let's flip back to the SPY. Look at this power squeeze. So what's interesting about this is all happening on the back of the FOMC meeting tomorrow. Massive squeeze. The yields are dropping. So you're looking like the bond market is pricing in a hawkish Fed. The dollar's dropping. Look at this squeeze on the S&P. Massive squeeze. So we're seeing a nice little short squeeze late into the session. Markets are powering up. Look at this. Pretty insane that this is happening right ahead of the Fed meeting. Almost as if they're trying to lure more people in. All right, so the session is closed. Markets had a very powerful day on the session. We're going to flip to AMD now just to watch those earnings. We've got lots of earnings coming in now. So we got AMD's the big one, AMGN, Snap, Chubb. But a massive rally for the markets late into the session. Really interesting to see right ahead of one of the busiest economic days and earnings packed report days tomorrow. So we'll see what happens and what transpires. So we're watching 9 different names here. SCCO, that's our direct short play. We're also watching AMGN, AMD, Snap, CP, Chubb, EW, SYK, Mondelez, MDLZ. We have our levels on AMD. No real action yet. AMD seeing some minor weakness, nothing much. No movement in Snap. AMGN's dropping in the after hours, so that's a big, big name. AMGN is down, starting to fall. So we may have a potential long play. I love this that it's beaten down already and that it's potentially falling. So let's just flip back to the... Oh. So AMGN has gapped down. AMGN around 230 we want to buy. Or sorry, 240 here. We can start accumulating. And then 232. AMD is starting to uptick a little bit. Very, very minimal. So AMD is just slightly up. AMGN's really the only one that's down. And it is down a little bit in the after hours here. Basically, you can see it's down 2.2%. The earnings did come in for AMGN, so they're in line with expectations. So their forecast for 2023 is slightly below Wall Street's forecast. This is the interesting thing about the markets. The really, really skeevy, and kind of shady thing about the markets. Let me just show you why we got that little rally. So the US 2-year yield had a drop late on in the day. Look at this. They sold it off, and then markets closed, and they ripped it back up. So essentially, the reason the SPY had this blow-off moves was because of the yields falling. So the markets love to lure and trap people in, and now the yield markets are still open for the next hour and pushing up, while the SPY is really closed. So that's crazy. That's sneaky. Oh, look at AMGN. It's catching a little bit of a bid. AMGN bounced. That's too bad. Look at that little bounce in AMGN. It could still come down. You never know. Nothing really on AMD. Obviously with AMGN up, it is boosting the market back up. So we're just waiting on the few earnings right now. Spiders have pulled slightly off the highs. Western Digital, big miss on WDC. Huge miss. Look at this. Nice. This looks good. I like this. That's really good. So where we could play this day trade, let's look for this gap fill around the 38 if it comes right into that. You'll have some support at this pivot, obviously. And then there was an original consolidation range before it broke down, basically trading right here. So Western Digital is now down about 6.3. Striker SYK is starting to move up a little bit. Up about $5 in the after hours. $250 stock, so it's not that much. Mondelez did report their stock isn't moving. No movement on Snap yet. Take a look at SYK, Striker. P just reported they beat. No real movement yet. Let's keep Snap on the radar. Snap is important for... Oh, here comes Snap. Here comes Snap. Snap is falling. Ooh, Snap for the ad revenue. Oh, Snap. Oh, Snap. Oh, Snap. We're falling. We're falling. Let's check Meta. Let's check Meta. Meta's down in the after hours as well. Sympathy plays coming in. Let's see if this continues. Meta is falling in the after hours. This is perfect for our short. Meta's down now 2.2%. Look at this. Meta's getting crushed. Here we go. This is perfect. Meta's down 2.2. So let's continue to see if we can see some weakness. I have no buy levels on Snap. Snap, I'm not touching. Snap your fingers. Do your step. Oh my goodness. But it could pop back up. You never know. You really never know. but Meta's down 2.16. The spiders are also seeing some weakness. Snap continues to fall. It's caught a nice big bid there. So the Snap at the low was down 13, just over 13%. Meta's down 2.16. And now if AMD miss, So there's a huge buy the dip mentality in Snap. A big buy the dip mentality. And often Snap just keeps trending lower and lower and lower. So we're now hitting that average vol range on Snap. Basically, the vol range is like around the 20% level, 15 to 20%. So we're right at that level. But a lot of people just keep buying Snap and it often trends lower. There is some support coming up on Snap over here. So about 867, you'll have some support at 867. We could potentially play Snap for a long, quick scalp day trade at 867. If Snap came down here in the next 10 minutes, 867, we can buy for a day trade. Let's check back on Meta. Meta's now down in the after hours 2.3%, so that's great for our short. AMGN still up. You're now seeing a little bit of weakness creep into crypto. You're seeing some weakness. Let's keep a look on. Snapchat just fired a bunch of people apparently. So AMD is going to be big. If AMD missed, then we should know what the sentiment is going into the market tomorrow. Between Snap and missing on the ad revenues, that'll weigh in like Meta, Google, a little bit of Microsoft. So it'll definitely weigh on the ad revenue space. And then in terms of if AMD missed suddenly, then you'll obviously have headwinds in the semiconductors. And AMD has been one of the semis that have shown the most relative weakness out of NVIDIA and Skyworks and some of these other big ones. AMD should be out in about a second or two. A little bit of market movement. Snap is still down 14%. AMGN's given up $1. Strikers pushing up a little bit. You also have Match, the dating app, down. MATCH. or MTCH. Match is down about 10%. AMD is starting to perk back up. Look at AMD. This Match just keeps falling. This Match is now down 11%. They beat on both top and bottom line, AMD. But let's just see if that's what the market was expecting. AMD is rallying. Short level in this area. Here's the short level on AMD. It's creeping up a little bit. it's creeping up. They beat on both top and bottom line. AMD's up about 3%. AMD's trying to push up. First level of resistance is this upsloping trend line, which is your COVID trend. Massive breakdown area. So that is, if you're aggressive, you can short this. I'm not going to be aggressive. I'd rather wait for the more conservative level. If the trade misses me, it misses me. There'll be another one around the corner tomorrow. But Snap's continuing to fall while AMD's remaining strong. Take a look at this. MTCH match group is seeing some pretty hard downside as well. Snap is still continuing to fall even more, down over 15%. Oh, crypto just had a dump. Oh my goodness, let's see what's going on with crypto. No one's watching crypto. What the heck's going on with crypto? I'm watching it. Crypto's dumping in the intraday time frames. Look at that dump just occurred in the last 5 minutes. There it is on my screen. Look at this dump coming in on Bitcoin. That just happened, this dump. So this could be creeping in on someone's earnings. We haven't seen anything yet, but it's very interesting. So we're just watching Bitcoin now. Snap's still down substantially. AMD's up. Striker's up. Bitcoin catching a nice bid. But that was a weird sell-off. Came out of nowhere. And this comes on the back of bullish consolidation. So you see what I'm saying is that that rally in the S&P is likely fake. Bitcoin probably just confirmed it depending on where this candle closes. But this looked to be almost bullish. But it's really not a bull flag or a bull pattern, this type of consolidation. And clearly, the markets just broke down. You sliced through this first pivot. You came all the way down into these pivot zones over here. But you have had a pretty big bounce in Bitcoin. So AMD is continuing to push up. I'll show you my AMD chart here. AMD is continuing to push. I'm watching Bitcoin and crypto on my other screen. Oof. Probably the reason why Bitcoin dropped is right here. EA. Huge drop. Huge drop. I'm not even sure why they dropped, but this is why Bitcoin dropped. Something to do with gaming. We all know crypto is very fluid in the gaming industry. You can often buy skins, tokens, perks, weapons, you name it. So EA obviously is seeing some tremendous amount of weakness, and this is the key thing on EA. Let me just show you this level. If EA loses this level, we could actually buy it here if it hits that trend line. But it is high risk because earnings tend to shatter through and have the ability to pierce the best resistance and the best support levels. So let me just do some more work. There's no movement on CP yet. As soon as CP moves, I'll cover it. But there's no movement on CP yet. Just doing some work on EA. AMD's free cash flow is a big mess. So 72% of COD players quit in December. One of the members. Thanks, Noam. So there's no movement on CP yet. AMD's pulling off the highs. EA continues to drop here, so just keep EA up on your radar. So Bitcoin caught a little bit of a bid. Let's see if it loses this key 200 intraday moving average. Snap is still down about 15%. Bitcoin's catching a bid. No movement on Chubb yet. So take a look at Meta. Meta basically lost almost all of its gains today. By now falling down 1.73%. So yeah, Meta did reverse all of its gains today. Even though the markets did rip higher. And that's all sympathy. Snap. Boom. Let's see if Google was affected at all. Google slightly affected. Pulled off of the highs. You can see it closed at around this 99.85 and it is down. Let's see if it hit Apple at all or Microsoft. Just slightly. Apple slightly as well. But really that's going to sum it up for earnings. You might see some forward guidance and other news of that nature, but Snap was the big loser as well as EA. And then AMD is obviously kind of helped keep the markets from not going much lower. But in terms of AMD, I still would short it tomorrow if it had continued its momentum. But I'd still look for these two key pivot zones up here around between the 84 and 85.60. Of course, you can always tune in to the live stream tomorrow morning to see what trade setups I take. We went 4 for 4 today in the day trade room, so hopefully we can continue to keep that momentum rolling. There's a whole host of earnings tomorrow that are going to be just off of the charts. I mean, when we look at some of the names, let me just pull up my earnings calendar. So when I look at some of the names, we've got Husqvarna, GSK in the morning, Humana. We've also got Altria Group, Alibaba, which we're short, Novartis, which we're short, T-Mobile, Tupperware Brands, TUP, that's a high-flying one, very, very, very fun to trade sometimes if the volume's there. We also have Fortive Corporation, Peloton, MetLife. I'm just mentioning basically the household names. Meta is tomorrow as well. So Meta might be an indication of, with Snap showing tremendous amount of weakness, Meta might also be showing some weakness. But yeah, we will have a jam-packed day tomorrow with data and obviously with the long-awaited interest rate decision will be happening tomorrow too. So my expectations for the market, let's just run things through quickly. So if we look at the S&P 500 daily chart, we'll do a little bit of market prep. I'm still keeping an eye on all the other stocks here during earnings just to see if there's any additional movements, but so far we're good. So the S&P did rally up today, filled this key technical gap to the upside, but you still remained inside of that previous high from a day or two ago. Now the volume did pick up on the SPY, so that's a little bit interesting to see, and you have technically held a breakout, and so far the bulls are winning because you have defended this key support zone and you've bounced off of that level with pretty good ferociousness. Now obviously anything can change with Powell, but what we're going to be looking for is volume tomorrow, what the overall trend does, sector breakouts, what the dollar does, and what yields do. We're now at this point in the S&P where we saw a, let me just pull it up on my chart. This level, we saw a 5.5% rally in the S&P because the 2-year yield dropped 7%. If Powell raises rates tomorrow by 0.25%, it takes us up to this 4.5 level, which is a 7.45% move. It basically mimics this down day, which would be an up day. And considering the S&P fell rallied 5.5% when yields fell, you would have to imply the same situation is true, considering we're trading right at the same level, if not actually higher on the indices. So if yields do rise 7% to the 4.5 level, that could bode negative for stocks and equities. In terms of the DXY, the level where we did have a short-term technical breakout, but we have not confirmed it on the daily. As long as we hold this downsloping trend line on the dollar, we still favor upside. In terms of QQQ, let's take a look at the NASDAQ tech heavy sector. So the QQQ actually did not fill its technical gap, showing relative weakness, but it's still trading under resistance. The IWM was the big winner on the day today, completely making a new high, but now you're trading into this wide range red bar. And I believe this was also a Fed meeting as well, so we'll have to see what transpires obviously with the FOMC. Other than that, that's really going to sum things up for this video. We didn't really do any trades in the after hours, but there's probably opportunities tomorrow that you want to be and definitely tune in for. Obviously with a drop on Snap, a pop on AMD, a drop on EA. There's going to be opportunities tomorrow, so if you're looking to see how you can profit and trade with us and ultimately learn, I'd recommend that you tune in for our live stream just so you can see what we're personally trading here at Trading Capital. Other than that, I'm going to wrap things up and call this session to an end. Awesome job today in the live stream trading, and we'll see you on the charts tomorrow. Take care, everybody.